All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Welcome to the Rockland Board of Sewer Commissioners, meeting Thursday, September 24th, 2020. Please be advised that this open meeting is being recorded by WRPS for playback on demand within 24 hours of this event at wrpsrockland.com. Please note any persons other than those included on the agenda will be muted. Would all participants please utilize the mute function when not speaking? Thank you. So we just have one on our agenda, 0 Pond Street design review and vote. And either Dave or Bob could elaborate on following conditions revised for the sewer commissioners.
Bob Galvin, are you on? Bob?
Yeah, I am.
Bob, is it, can you read that motion or does that have to be Walter?
No, I can, I emailed over a draft motion that's called a revised proposed motion for the sewer commissioners.
Right.
Correct.
So you should have it. I had a conversation with Robin today.
Correct.
And we discussed the issue of fees because there's a paragraph 4 that references payment of fees and expenses. And I was told that there'd been a prior discussion about what fees would be applicable, and
Right.
possibility that that language would be substituted with a schedule with the fees that were agreed upon, which is completely fine with me. When we were doing the Lydia Square project, which you're all probably familiar with, it was originally envisioned as being a town project, and a number of the fees that were ordinarily paid for by a developer were waived because it was the Rockland Housing Foundation that was developing the project. Well, they ended up selling it and they get the benefit of the waivers. So Dave and I had talked about how to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And that's where this language came from, a recognition that, you know, that's not something that we typically do. We did it for ourselves when we were developing a project, but that's not customary for us, particularly because of the condition of the sewage system and the need for improvements. So just kind of back up for 1 second. The reason why the developer is coming to you is that they're looking for you to say something favorably to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which acts as the comprehensive permit granting authority for the town of Rockland. That means that the zoning board basically decides all of the local permit issues, except some matters that might be designated to local boards acting under state law. Like, for example, the Conservation Commission will still have to approve this project under the Wetlands Protection Act, but the local bylaw will be up to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that's what I mean by that. So the motion that I prepared was, assuming the board feels this way, and I don't have any personal stake in the outcome of this matter, if you were favorably inclined to recommend this project, the vote would be to recommend that the Board of Appeals approve the project at 0 Pond Street, Rockland, known as Shingle Mill, based on the following conditions. One, that the town of Rockland sewage system, which is being managed under an EPA administrative consent order, has the capacity or be able to be improved by the town of Rockland to have the capacity to accept the sewerage from the proposed project at 0 Pond Street, Rockland, Massachusetts. Number 2, that the applicant pay the sum of money calculated by the Rockland Sewer Commissioners pursuant to the EPA administrative consent order necessary to make the required improvements to the town of Rockland's municipal sewerage system prior to the commencement of any work on the proposed project. 3, that the proposed connection, when performed, shall be completed at the applicant's cost and expense, must be performed in compliance with the rules and regulations of the town of Rockland Sewer Commission, in effect at the time of the approval of the proposed project by the Board of Appeals. And 4, that the applicant be responsible to pay the required sewer connection fees and expenses in effect at the time of the issuance of the sewer connection permit, which shall issue upon approval of the final sewer connection plans by the Rockland Sewer Commission. So the belief would be, if you were favorably opposed to this, that, and the Zoning Board of Appeals voted in favor of the project, that at some point they'd come back to you and they would say to you, here's our actual connection plans. What are the fees that we owe you to connect, and pay for those in exchange for a sewer connection permit. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, in number 2, there's a sum of money calculated in accordance with the formula of the EPA consent order that they'll have to pay to provide the town the money to make improvements designed to increase the capacity of the system, because as I understand it, and I don't know for sure, but as I understand it, we can't add additional capacity to the sewer system without making improvements designed to reduce the infiltration and I forget the other concept, into the sewer system. So when I drafted the original motion, I was concerned there was another element that I've omitted now, and that other element that I originally included was that the applicant pay for the study. I've since been informed that the study that will determine what improvements need to be made to get the study has been fully funded by the town, but has been put off until the springtime. And I've heard some competing information that maybe that's not the type of study that gives us that information, but obviously that's what you need to be done in this case, so that you know that you have the capacity to add this. So hopefully the commissioners have this in front of you, what I wrote. If there's an amendment because the fees are agreed upon, that's fine. I want to make sure that we list out what fees they're responsible for, and how much that is, which I think is separate from the issue of the money that they'll need to pay under the EPA administrative consent order. So
can I ask a couple questions? Bob?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if
It's Chuck.
Yeah.
Okay, the question I have is that one is maybe a clarification. There are 2 studies that have been approved. One is a comprehensive comprehensive facility assessment, I believe for the sum of $124,000, and that's to just do the facility itself. There is another study pending this spring for the sum of $295,000 to do an I&I study. Now, based on if this project goes through, so everyone understands, the applicant is going to be responsible to find and remove. We have to find and remove 429,550 gallons per day for this to be successful. Now, with that said, also, did you have a chance to read the other 2 conditions that I would like to add? Bob?
Chuck, I was actually preparing for another 40B trial, so I haven't got to all my emails today.
Okay, if I can read it aloud, you tell me if they're kosher. As part of that conditions, I would like to add the following. From an engineering point, the basic design of the system is sound, and I feel will be fine. However, based on the amount of fill required, the proximity of the surrounding wetlands, the potential for compromise exists. The soil, even though it's packed, will be packed along with 2 large structures in a parking lot of vehicles, eventually will settle. The moisture that will be absorbed from weather events, the existing wetlands, will permeate to some degree into that fill, and therefore the potential exists for it to exert vertical and lateral force on the pipelines. So with that concern, I'd like to make 2 more conditions: that all pipe joints, laterals, or unions be encased in concrete or some other agreed upon material to assure the integrity of the connections should there be any shifting or further settling of the packed soil.
Chuck,
Yeah,
is that That's on site?
on site, but I want to make it a condition of the permit. That
Right.
engagement process should be photographed before and after, inspected and signed off by the Rockland Sewer Department Superintendent. 2, at the 5 and 10-year mark of the project completion, video camera surveys to be conducted to assess the integrity of the sewer lines out to the Pond Street main, as well as check for any inflow and infiltration. This test will be done at the expense of the owner and will require sign-off and approval by the Rockland Superintendent. Should corrective actions be necessary, they are to be made within 6 months of the discovery, and again at the owner's expense. If corrections are necessary, they must be re-inspected within 5 years of the date of repair. If no corrections are necessary after 10 years, this condition will expire. So I'm going to ask that that be placed on as part of the conditions of the permit. The other thing I would like to mention is we have a motion on the table that was accepted and approved for recommend that the ZBA do a peer review. That I don't think the letter from the department has not yet come. Now, I also am in possession of a letter from Amory Engineers dated September 22nd of this year. And under utilities, page 3, utilities, item 2, it states documentation of adequate capacity in the existing municipal sewer system should be provided. Now that's telling me we have to provide the ZBA with documentation that says we have the capacity before they grant the permit. Am I correct, Bob? Bob, I'm referring to the Pat Brennan's letter. Am I correct? You're muted.
I don't doubt that he said that.
No, his letter is dated to the September 22nd, and it's the same verbiage that was in the June letter. The documentation of adequate capacity in the existing municipal system should be provided. That's got to come from the sewer department that we have adequate capacity. So
Okay,
they're
so
waiting that documentation.
the first condition that I proposed was that the sewer system have the capacity or be able to be improved to have the capacity for the sewage. So I think that's duplicative.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask, so we're all operating on a level playing field here. Mr. Lincoln, when was the last conversation you've had with the town regarding this project as far as sewer?
First of all, I don't even know why that question is relevant.
No, I'm just curious. I just want to make sure that all conversations have been out on the board that we're all aware of now. So there's been everything from the last meeting is still valid.
So Chuck, I can comment on it. I talked to Rick today and just said we had validation.
Oh,
We
okay.
were still agreed on the fee schedule.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
so
So I just wanted to make sure we still had everything out there.
we're all up to speed and playing on the same field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just so everybody's on,
Can I ask one question?
just so, go ahead.
This is Rick. I didn't know.
Mr. Lincoln, hold on a second.
Okay.
Walter, you're in charge of this meeting.
Yes.
So any questions that you want to have answered, get answered, okay? It's not like a interactive dialogue with the developer unless you want Mr. Lincoln to answer questions or you want Mr. Taylor to answer questions. So that's the way a public meeting goes. This is not a public hearing. So I just want to remind you that, you should approve all the questions.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. And I respect that.
Can I ask a question then?
Yes,
Relating to fees.
pardon?
Relating to fees.
Fees, yes.
I was just looking for clarification because I know we had this detailed list back at the end of the year. I think it's $1,580,000 and then money for the substation or pump station improvements, I'm sorry. But I know Bob's letter kind of got into the EPA consent order and you know, a couple of other, he described it differently, I guess. So are the total fees exactly that? Do we know?
Walter, do you want me to
Yes,
clarify
I'd
on the
like you to
fees?
clarify on that, please.
All right. So Rick, what we talked about as far as the fee schedule, so you have the number of units times $5,000 a unit.
Right.
So that currently is at 11,080,000.
$1,180,000.
I'm sorry, 1,180,000.
You're gonna give
And
me
then
a heart attack.
the number of,
He did.
what's that?
You're gonna get pretty-
Yeah, and then the number of, the remediation fee, which is the INI, proposed INI is 390,000, 500,000.
Okay.
Then you also have the sewer tie-in,
Hey,
which
somebody
is
come to you.
11,800.
Right.
Well, now I have a question on,
And then also you have the improvements to the existing pump station
Oh, yeah.
at Old Country Way,
Right.
which was $150,000.
Okay. That's what I have.
So the total was $1,732,300.
Okay.
I have
And
a,
again, that would be dependent on the number of units. Yeah.
here's the question I got that I'll have now. Say, we have allocated as a town $300,000 on top of that, $300,000 for that INI study. Now, what happens if that INI study does not find the 429,550 gallons that they have to remove?
Could I answer that,
Anybody?
Chairman? It's Ernesto Caparora. Could I answer that?
Pardon?
Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. At the point there, you still have another $1.4 million to cover if there's any over budget items. But that's how the project always been approved by the Rockland Conservation. Essentially, you agree to a fee, and that's up to the Rockland Sewer Department to comply with the INI that's required by the DEP. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna have to get a clarification on the ordinance because it's 11:1 ratio, remember, that we have with this, I believe, the state of the EPA for new connections.
Chuck, that's correct. What the fee schedule is based on. You know, they came up with that 11:1, and they did the ratio per bedrooms for EPA times the total gallons per day per bedroom. Price $10 a gallon, which gives you that 390 and 500,000. So,
But I think there's also
so that's where that number comes from.
a water, I think there is a water requirement that we remove that. But we're gonna have to look into
Right.
what I'm saying. We're gonna have to get clarification on that. That I think will have to come from the EPA, which I don't want to call right now.
Yeah.
So let's just see how this plays out then through the ZBA.
Okay, we make a motion now?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the revised proposal as read.
And with my two added conditions?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
By the way, when you take a motion and you're in a remote session, it has to be done by a roll call vote. So Walter, you should call everybody's name and just have them affirm with their name how they voted. And I know everybody could see it, but technically that's how a vote is supposed to be taken in a remote session. So
Mhm.
comply with the requirements of the law and appreciate just doing a roll call vote. And you do that by saying, Mr. Hessian, how do you vote? And then everybody else. And,
Okay.
all right.
Mr. Hessian, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Pardon?
Abstain.
Okay. Dave Taylor?
You
No,
don't vote.
I'm not, I can't vote.
Dave doesn't vote.
no, I'm sorry, Ernesto?
No, it'll be just wrong.
Just a member.
Still doesn't vote either. It's only the board members.
Ron,
Ron?
Yes, I approve.
And then
That's it.
Walter, you state your
And
vote.
myself? I approve.
Okay, so the motion as amended
Mr.
is approved.
Approved.
Walter, is it possible that I can explain to maybe the residents on the I? Just so they get a feeling on the I and the capacity of the plant?
Dave, is that you speaking?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that should be at a separate meeting.
Do you want to just bring that up? I just think it's fair to the residents to know how we get that capacity from the collection system as opposed to the plant.
Okay.
Is that on the agenda?
It's
No.
not,
No.
Well,
That's-
wait a second. This relates to the motion that was passed, and I see several people shaking their heads, nodding, or otherwise seeming agitated. And I think if Mr. Taylor can explain what this I thing, and it relates to the vote, that is perfectly permissible to explain that.
fine then? All right, so we're just trying to explain the capacity. There's two different types of capacity. There's a plant capacity and also there's collection capacity. So the I, what that is, that's an infiltration and inflow. Ed, are you online? Ed McAuliffe or Rick?
Yeah,
Can you tell me what we're currently right now with the drought for million gallons per day?
Rolling average.
do you want
Which
rolling
is-
average or current monthly average?
EPA will go by the rolling average.
I'd like to, the rolling average, Ed?
All right, how about I give you both? So right now, the rolling average for the previous 12 months is 2.505 million gallons per day. Last month the monthly average was 1.648 million gallons per day. And as of this month, as of today, we're at 1.542 million gallons per day.
I'd like to emphasize also
Okay,
that
so,
drought and the COVID.
right. So the
Well, the
thing
COVID adds
is,
to it.
right, so you're actually, what the point is, the point I have is, right now, that average is lower because there's no inflow and infiltration. Is that correct, me saying that, Ed? As far as when there's no water going into the system right now, we have a true sewer average right now, what's coming into the system?
Right. I think you could make that assessment to say that as of right now, with the current flows and the drought that we're in, that those flows are accurate for right now. But we also know just from historical records that when we do get rain, we are going to see I, and we are going to see the flows of the facility go up. So I think that is correct, but I also think you do have to account
Right.
for the flows because we know that they will come. So.
And
Hey, David,
My point
David?
being, so the residents in around.
Sure.
Yeah,
Ed, if I may, just reiterate for the residents what our NIPD's permit flow limit is.
Sure. So our monthly average of million gallons per day permitted through our NIPD's permit with the state and federal regulations is 2.5 million gallons per day.
Thank you.
Thanks. So my point being is the only way we can get more plant capacity is by doing I&I work, which the
Great.
town voted the article in the spring, which was the $300,000 that Chuck brought up earlier on the SCS study. And then we make the developer, said developer, go back after that I&I, where we're getting infiltration into our system. That is the only way we're going to get capacity at the plant, by updating the collection system. There's no other way of getting money. I just don't want it to seem like that, you know, the taxpayers are getting screwed, but this is the only way we can fix this plant capacity is by going out into the collection capacity and fixing that. So
And
I
I
just want,
100% agree with you. I know,
right,
but please understand that the EPA, they're going to look at your flow, all right? And there's no need to beat this. It's a dead horse. But I
right,
also want to point out to the residents that in two previous studies in 2008 and again in 2019 combined, we only removed 300,000 gallons a day.
right. So,
And now, okay, with that 300,000 removed, we're at 2.5 now. Now we've got to find an additional to give us some buffer. Now that's without any additional future growth to this town. That is the key. Look at the potential for growth. We're at it, folks.
yeah. So I just wanted that brought up because I know I went back into the records and I'm looking at 2005 and up. And then back in the time records, we had a rolling average of 3 million. So from 2005, we've taken out 500,000 gallons. Referring to Chuck,
We're at
essentially.
and I also want to be fair
Right.
to you and
So,
I want to be fair to the department and everyone else. To the residents, this facility has treated up to 6 million gallons a day. That means it can
Right.
process, but it's not effectively treating. You've got to still remove those COCs, the contaminants of concern. Now, we can handle 6 million gallons on an extremely short burst of time. You cannot handle it. This plant has the design capacity of 2.5. Our permit limit is 2.5. That's what we will be judged on. But we have to be cognizant of that.
correct, Chuck. I just wanted it to be noted so the residents saw why we were looking at that, you know, out in the collection system. And that's literally the only other way we can gain capacity at this point. You know, the plant is what it is at this point until it's updated. The only way we can get that is by treating the I&I out in the collection system. So
Walter,
I just wanted that noted, that's all.
Walter, can I just make one more comment?
Yes.
So this is Rick. Based on my experience, and again, I've done probably 4 of these at this point, but Title V, we're the gallonage that we're talking about introducing into the town system is, say, 39,000 gallons, but that's just a Title V design figure. The actual experience in the field on these pre-treatment, well, I've done pre-treatment systems too. It tends to be a half or a little less. So the actual volume into the town system is more likely going to be 20,000 gallons. A lot of people don't realize that Title V, is the 110 gallons per day is got a large fluff factor, and it's typically not the experience once it gets built.
And Rick, again, you're 100% correct. However, all we care about is our final effluent, our discharge into French's stream.
Understood.
Okay, I don't care if you put 5 gallons in. All I look is the final numbers. And that's what the EPA is going to look at. And we have faced, so everyone knows, we're going to be looking at a new permit this year, either this year or the very first of next year. Now, as Mr. Galvin stated, we still have an open order of administrative order for repeated flow violations. That will be, I guarantee you, they may not have the funding to look at it now, and that'll be by the grace of God by go that we go. But if they pick up on it, we're gonna have an issue. But with that said, I'd like to make a motion, we close the meeting.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
You gotta take a roll call, Walter.
Pardon?
You have to take a roll call.
Motion to adjourn should be approved by a roll call vote.
Well, wait a minute, Bob, one other thing. What about that other motion that we voted on, approved back in June that was never acted on? Do we have to close that?
No? You've made a motion that supersedes it.
Okay.
Okay. Chuck,
Aye.
Dave, Ron,
Ron, Dave,
Adjourn.
pardon?
Adjourn.
Okay. I'll second it. All in favor?
Say yes.
Aye, yes.
disapprove.
Yes.
Thank you.